Hello, welcome to another episode of the GNPS General Lungelo. As always, coming at you with another dope guest. Sitting across me is my next guest, Lungelo Manzi. Welcome to the pod, bro.
What up, brother?
Okay, it's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you very much for having me.
As we always say on the GNPS, it's been a long time coming.
It's been a long time. hey, it really has.
The man is finally here. I think it's been how many months? 3 months, 2 months. We're trying to 3.
Yeah, with lockdown going up and down,
Yeah.
and it's been a while trying to get this in, but I'm glad we've got the time now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no better time than
Yeah.
the actual time.
Then the time it's meant for.
Yeah, which is now.
Yeah.
And lockdown, I mean, okay, by the way, if you don't know, angazi kanjani kodwa ke mawungazi. Lungelo is an artist, period. We'll just leave it at that. So you, as the conversation go, you'll figure out what kind of art he dabbles in. Bro, you were not okay. I'm glad you're using your real name as well.
Yeah.
'Cause this is just like one thing that I feel like we tend to sleep on this side as far as like stage names and things like that are concerned. Is like our names are unique, especially when you take them internationally.
Yes.
Which is where I presume every artist is looking to take their work, and so that means so are you.
Yeah.
But to Lungelo Manzi, you were not born an artist. You didn't, and I don't know. Maybe you did. Some people just like from an early age, their parents put a piano in front of them, and then they start going.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I'm interested in Lungelo Manzi, the person, before we get to the artist.
I would say, to keep it simple, man, I'm like a nerd, you know. I'm very much someone who is curious about the world, you know.
Yeah.
I keep to myself when I want to, but I'm also very outgoing at the same time. You know, I love getting to know people in the right type of spaces, learning from people, learning from the world. And as far as how that connects with me being an artist, it's about expression, you know. It's knowing Uguti at every point I was just absorbing the things around me, whether it was music, television, and knowing Uguti, this started to show around the people I'd hang out with. Uguti, hey man, you know, you've got something there. Whether it was starting out as a poet, because that's what I used to be in high school, and then moving into being a singer, because I used to sing through high school, from primary to high school to varsity, in choirs and things like that, and then moving into rap, and then combining all those things when it's time to be like, yo, what are you about? When I got to Durban, and I was like, okay, cool, as in, let's push in, man. And yeah, that's pretty much how that goes.
You say when you got to Durban, so is this after varsity or did you live somewhere else?
So ngikhulela eThekwini.
Yeah.
Then when I matriculated in 2011, I went Cape Town to go study. Didn't finish studying, but I was there for up until like 2014, end of 2014, early 2015. I got back to Durban. From the time I left to get back here, the sound like Ethekwini had changed and grown a lot of ways. It was also the reason why I felt I wanted to go to Cape Town, because I always looked at Cape Town like the city that you could go to be who you want to be as far as like creatively. You know, graphic design, the arts world, the visual arts world is big there. But I didn't know, and I'd find out to go to corner, there's also a huge scene to be who you want to be. All the weird kids were sort of creating Lapo, and I wasn't familiar with that crowd like Ethekwini, even though they might have been here.
Yeah.
That's when I realized, okay, cool. If I want to create my sound, let's just try and be different and see where that goes. Because around then, you know, I think it was around the time Mikarakara from KO was like blowing up. That's the heavy sound that was going on. There was a huge Kwaito hip hop sort of feel in the city, and I wasn't there specifically. I was in my own lane and trying to create something in that lane from a different perspective. And I would soon find out that actually there was stuff going on, and I just missed out on it. And then that made me even more passionate to, instead of trying to do the thing everyone does of leaving Durban to go to Jersey, or leaving wherever you are to go to Jersey, I was like, okay, cool, let me stay in Durban where I'm from, build my name, keep my name, and see where that takes me. Yeah.
So school years, you spent all your school years here in Durban.
Yeah, so primary school, I don't know, I think I didn't go to like the popular primary schools. I went to my church that my mom goes to is Durban Christian Center.
Mm.
Back then, they used to have a school. They still do. It's changed its name over time. So it was called International Christian Academy when I was there. Then I left that school in grade 7 to go to at George Campbell. And got corner from grade 8 to matric. That's pretty much the times I've been there.
So you basically a typical Durban kid.
Pretty much. I mean, a lot of the guys that I
grew up within the city, man.
read about corner, but I'm from the Campbell and all these surrounding schools. So was it a win? If they do, I wanted to know.
So I mean, when you're like, especially high school, so were you involved within the art scene outside of school or at school?
I was aware of it, but I wasn't involved in it. So, for example, the only artistic thing I did at school, because now George Campbell, it's more of a
technical school.
Yeah, but also grade 8 to reality. And I see that as artistic, even though it's meant for a specific thing. But that was one of my first exposures to drawing and seeing things. In primary school, I was way artistic because I used to do theater. So they'd plan these shows, and then we'd perform them at the big church, during the offering sort of time. So I'd play these parts that represent biblical things. High school comes, I'm not doing accounting and all these other things everyone is doing. Lapo for civil, electrical or mechanical. And I was doing electrical and in the choir. That was probably the most sort of artistic thing. Grade 11 or 12, I was doing public speaking. Those are the two elements I think that contributed to my creative mind, but it's still very technical based. Outside of that, there was poetry that was happening. There used to be a society that connected all these high schools together from DHS, and you'd come together some Saturdays and you'd come and perform your stuff. I went there once to perform, just to get it out of my system, but that was one space I used to see a lot of artists release their material, just express themselves. Then also there was that scene, I don't know, around 2008, when crumping was big. Ngasema terminali.
Those are the times of Genesis and Young Royals and I think those crews.
Those heavy ass crews, that was one of my exposures. But I think around that time, the Bat Center, when it was big, it was still going on the decline at that time. But I just got enough of it to see it's okay, the backpack rappers, and that's when I used to see those guys there. So those are my sort of references when I think creativity in Gisakule Lightegwin.
Yeah. Oh wow. So no sports for you?
Hey man, I won't lie. Grade 8 in Zambia, rugby. I was a big kid, so they put me at prop. It's because
what happened, bro?
Hey man, I don't even want to give it a reason. People have said a lot of things, but I tried the sports thing, but because I wasn't exposed to it much in primary school, because my primary school, when I got in there, it opened the year before, so it didn't have a sort of like a developed team, a swimming pool, these sorts of things. So I wasn't exposed to sports as much as I was the arts. So I was more into my books and more into being a bookworm.
You did mention that you were a nerd.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing, kids.
It's not.
It's actually a good thing. Hey. Look at this man.
Shout out to my nerds out there.
Right. No sports, But now at home, what happens when you're back at home? So who's at home? Mom?
So at home, it's my mother, my sister, and my sister's children, so my nieces.
Now, so you have an older sibling?
I have 9 older siblings.
Oh.
From different
Shit,
fathers.
don't tell me you're also a last born.
I am a last born.
Shit.
Yeah, on both sides, on my father and my mother's side. My mother only has 3 kids, including myself, and the rest are from my father. Now, at home, it's just, like I said, my mother, sister, and 3 kids. They're a lot older now, so Obanya Baya Funda in varsity, Omunya's in matric. And at home, like I don't stay in I stay in the city, So I'm a sort of a city kid, but it's I was always indoors, man, you know, because town had changed when I was growing up. When I was a kid, we used to go play Albert Parky and have fun with all the other kids. Now it's
Albert Parky na mapara.
Yeah, but so it wasn't the same when I got up. So when I grew up, So that's when I was just like indoors, I'd meet up with people at their places, and then we'd chill and hang out with it. Be Glenwood, Devonport, those sorts of areas. Yeah.
And you said you went to Cape Town to study. What were you studying there?
I went to ECT to go study film and media.
Mm.
Funny story, I didn't.
Oh.
When military
And
came, yeah.
how did that come about?
So I didn't want to go to George Campbell. I'm going to get DHS. But
Showcase.
wa khohlwa in terms of the application dates. So George Campbell was the only school open. Because remember I said I came from an artistic background. I was like,
Yeah.
let me go do theater there. So George Campbell comes, but it opens my mind up to the technical stuff. So we're all building and thinking, okay, we're going to become like electrical engineers, me and my classmates. But by matric, because I was exposed to zonke lezinto, crampers and the poetry, I can see this thing is building inside of me, and that's what I want to do. A friend of mine who I met through a thing called DYC, which is Durban Youth Council. It combines schools to, like members, representatives from different schools to build things in the community and help from a youth perspective. I was exposed to someone who wanted to go to AFTA, which is a film school in Cape Town, but it was a private school.
Yeah.
Now, I was also very curious about this because being a bookworm and whatnot, I used to love cartoons, like all Dragon Balls, all these random shows I used to play on TV. And I loved the writing behind it. So I wanted to learn how to screenwrite and write scripts. So I looked up the best schools, and publicly it was UCT was one of the highest ones for film and media. And through NSFAS and whatnot, I was like, okay, cool, I'm going to go apply there. But I applied so late, and I only applied there. Pumanyama matric results in 2011, that's when I got my acceptance letter, and I went through, sorted everything out. First year was cool. Second year got a bit tricky, and had to drop out because I went through a whole sort of like season of having an episode. I got diagnosed with depression.
Oh,
It was crazy.
bro.
So I couldn't finish my my studies. I had to put them on hold, and that was part of the reason because in that time I was really exploring my creativity with the people that I was meeting outside of the classes and lectures. So there was sort of a battle between now wanting to be the screenwriter and now realizing, hey, there's this music thing too. And all of that now mixing together with myself and my inner spirit, those things got to a clash. Ended up having to be like admitted to a psych ward to just get better for a time. Got back to Durban, and then that really got to me finding my identity through that whole thing, because it's not something that anyone goes through. It's not a common thing.
I can imagine because, like, I have a friend who also went to Cape Town, sort of had a similar incident as you. He ended up coming back because, he had to drop out of school and be admitted somewhere to deal with the condition that he had. And I can imagine for you now, I mean, because also you're a young guy, you're in a place that you've never been before, with people that you don't know, and you have this situation which you've never dealt with before, or probably no one has ever spoken to you about it.
Exactly, yeah.
Because from my understanding is that within the black community, this is not something that we focus on.
Yeah, it's not spoken about enough, I think. We've come a long way from the time that I dropped my first project in 2016 to now. The conversation around mental health in black communities has really grown. And I can't ignore that. I see it online on Twitter. I see it in general conversations in Abantu. But then when it was happening, it was like, the friends that you made during this time in varsity, when you go through something like that, you quickly get isolated because both of you guys just don't realize what's going on. So out of fear, you just keep to yourself and focus on what you need to focus on, because now it's a bit too heavy. Once you're dealing with your mind and how to deal with that, how to heal from that, and things like trauma, those things aren't talked about enough. But that's what I had to go through, man. And it's been a scary process, but I'm glad I went straight through it, to come out and have this great interview now.
I'm sorry, I'm not trying to, but I feel like, since you are somebody that's been in that situation and you've somewhat find your way out of it and you've continued to progress through that, I feel like you're the ideal person who can give advice on these issues for people out there who either are in that same situation or they have somebody in their life that's going through the same situation.
Yeah, I think, a big thing about it is communication. my mother saw that I was a very independent child in Isakula. She always tells me the story about how when I was like 7 or 8, yeah, primary for like grade 1 times, besimele sigibele ngakuraseli siye emakethe sigibele opopopo, which is like these like old school buses, for those that don't know, that take us to Mayville. And then from Mayville, my school is there, and I would go to school. But from like the first or second day, I would tell her, no, Mom, it's cool. I'm fine. I know my way now. And she was surprised by that. But she took it as me being independent and, went with that. And from there, I guess I built this whole thing of doing things for myself. I don't know where I got it from. It might have been my dad or whoever. But that also ended up being, you realize that you can only do so much as a human being. And sometimes things get tiring. Sometimes you need to lean on people. And it doesn't have to feel wrong to do that. That also speaks to wanting to speak to people when you're not okay. We don't do enough of that because as a man, you've got to provide for yourself when you get to this age. You've got to think about building your home. You've got to think about all these pressures that come with that. And sometimes, or at least in the black community, there's not enough space given for us to talk about those things. And I think it got to a point for me, in my experience, that because I didn't talk about it, when all of this stuff came back in my young adulthood, it boiled over because I didn't know what was happening. Now I'm just being overwhelmed by being in a new space, coping, trying to pay for my studies, all of those things. And if I had someone to talk to, it would have made a big difference. If I knew there were organizations like the South African Depression and Anxiety Group where you could call and speak to someone, not just, having a support system, because that's also important. There are a lot of key things. So I would say, as far as advice, keeping a great support system, which is like close friends. Doesn't mean you have to meet up like a focus group and then, if that works for you, great. But just having someone you can send a WhatsApp text to now and again and be like, sure, grand, having a good relationship, so trying to build a good relationship with your parents if you can, to create a dialogue, because yes, our parents know what's best for us, but we are also individuals who can learn and teach in the same way. I believe in that sort of mutual partnership to grow, because they also come from a certain time where they went through the trauma of apartheid and learned how to be parents through that system. Now, with us being one of the first few generations after that, there's got to be so much we've got to communicate between us to try to get to a better place, because there were wounds there that we didn't discuss. We've just adapted our culture to a system that was bigger than us at that time. My thing is trying to make sure that people understand that talk to someone or find an outlet. For me, it was music. For other people, it could be drawing, dancing, painting, whatever it is that lets you paint a picture that is yourself without being influenced by too many things. For you to just let it out there and see yourself as a reflection in the things that you can create, that will help you to release the things that you might not be able to communicate, or the things that you might express in a more toxic way.
Wow. I think what I'm picking up out of the story that you just shared with us is that you not only have healed from that, but I feel like I sense you've grown.
Very, very much, yeah. I think my first tape name, when it's called Black Dog.
Yeah.
Black Dog is a term that is used to reference depression or melancholy, which is the word they use for it. And I named it that because before even speaking about mental health as if I know what it is now, I was just scared of what if I blow up, I don't want people to like find out my business. Would see, hey, isn't that the dude that went crazy at varsity? Isn't that the dude that, that was the fear that I was coming from, because I noticed that in SA we have a very much a gossip culture since we're not communicating. For doing things that are out of order. So I was writing from that fearful place. And when you listen to the tape, you'll hear like voice notes in between the songs. These are voice notes of my actual friends at the time who were watching me go through this whole experience. And they're sharing their perspectives. I did that firstly just for me to hear it directly from them, knowing what I know as the one who went through it, and to also hear what they see now. Because after writing the tape, I wrote the tape in 2015. I went through my episode in 2013. So the growth that was firstly there was between those friends and myself, knowing how far we've come, that I'm still picking myself up. Then it went into, over time, after I dropped the first tape, I directly spoke to this issue that I went through and kept speaking about it through my next project, Black Dog 2, and now the third one, which is coming up, and finishing the whole story. So I didn't know that this was going to happen while in the SA hip hop scene. We lost two great guys such as Ujaba and Upro Kid, linked to these sorts of conversations, you know, with Jabba and Pro Kid. So those conversations were happening, and hip hop was starting to talk about it, you know. It just affirmed in me, it was okay, cool. At least now this thing that I wrote from fear is now something that I can use to empower Abanye Bantu. Even if it's not like, yo, get some help, do some, you know, not like a preachy sort of way. But I'm doing it in a way that's like, hey man, here's my story. If you like it, you don't like it, at least you've heard it.
And it's honest.
You know what I mean? And that's all you can do as an artist. You can't tell people how to feel about your stuff. All you can do is share it, give as much as you can when you were sharing it, and hope for the best, because that's your role, is to just provoke a communication. I like what Nina Simone is usually quoted for saying, you know, an artist's responsibility is to reflect the times. And I just felt around that time, we're thinking like fees must fall. With now there's a GBV crisis going on. There's the pandemic that we're in. All these conversations were just feelings that I've had looking inside myself.
And can I just add, you know, I can somewhat say Black Dog 1 and Black Dog 2 were like years ahead of their time. Because I feel like even now, especially in this moment, with the things that you just mentioned, the GPV that's going on, the pandemic, because with that like came unemployment. And that brings on stress, frustrations. So that means there's a lot of people who could be depressed right now amongst us, and because they are not letting it out or sharing with the people that are around them, as you said, so they're suffering in silence. And so your music, you know, it's something that they can resonate to, or so they could use to somewhat find answers to their current situations.
I'd like to believe that as well, you know, because it's like when you're a new artist coming up, there's so much pressure to be a certain kind of artist, maybe the one based on what's on radio right now. One of the things I knew in myself was I would say, hey, so I don't have it in me to be like the jump around trap. No disrespect, because I do jump on trap songs, but I give it my own spin, you know what I mean? So a big part of being authentic, I think, is about staying true to what works for you and what you connect with at the time that you're creating Leon Toifunai, you know? And what you're saying about what's happening in the world, you know, that's just what I feel when I think about it, because it's like I'll be in conversations with people before, after a show, and we talk about these things. Yes, we're drinking, we're having fun, it's nice times, but we are speaking about, yo, man, the world is pretty messed up outside. You're bringing up unemployment. I didn't even think about it like that, but that's actually a huge contribution, you know?
Because we're already at a point where
youth unemployment is so high.
And now because of the lockdown and this whole situation with the pandemic, people lost jobs. And people are still losing jobs. They're still going to lose jobs because it's going to take long for us to get the economy back to where it was before.
We've got corruption on the other end, you know. So you're dealing with like Abantu that feel helpless. And in those times, you know, one of the things I worried about is that, okay, cool, as long as my music is there for when people want to listen, they'll get it. But it's not to discredit Abantu that make music that's energetic, because we also need that. People need to dance, people need to feel good, people need to escape if they need to. That helps. But I feel like that only works when it's also working with people who want to also listen. So when you're back from visiting your friend and having a good time, maybe you're in your thoughts and it's like 3 a.m, you know, you're not sleeping. I want to make music for that guy. Like, instead of thinking about going to a darker place after all of that, you know, rather put on a song of mine and just listen to it, and maybe take things from my music that can help you wake up the next day. You know, because as long as you wake up the next day, you've done a lot. True. You know what I mean? And then everything else, Zofiangus cuts, you know.
And not only that, but like when you listen to your music, I could pick up that you've been somewhere where at least been, or way further than even I've been. I'm like, yo, you know, I really, because sometimes we compound our problems in our heads just by thinking about them. To such a point that, you know, you think that this thing is only happening to you, or you think this you're the only person who's experienced what you're going through.
Yeah.
Whereas there's many other people who have been there who can tell you how to somewhat try and deal with this issue that you're facing, which is once again brings me back to the music.
Yeah.
And here's a problem that comes into place, is that we have facilities. For instance, you are making your music, ne? And we just spoke that unemployed people. So if someone just lost their job or they are unemployed and they're depressed about that situation, how are they gonna hear your music when radio doesn't facilitate? And that's where those people going through those situations could be getting access to listen to music such as yours. But here on radio, the only songs that you'll find is the songs that makes people turn up, or it's a song that's by an artist that's signed to a major label.
Yeah.
Or it's a song from an artist who's not even from here. Who's not reflecting the times of this place. As you said, the artist's responsibility is to reflect the times of now.
Yeah. That is so true. I struggle with it a lot. I won't lie. Those who I work with in studio know which I'm always having like these mini rants of just like, yo, man, why is this not happening for us? Because like, you're getting the same feedback as the guys that you may be studying who are in those positions from when you're working and when you're pushing your stuff. But it's like the artist also has that sense of like, you don't want to call it entitlement, but you do want to feel appreciated to the point where you can also make a living off of this. I don't want to need to feel that, yes, it's important to have a 9-to-5, but should there be room for someone with the same level of credentials and skills, they should have that space. But at the same time, I'm speaking from the position behind the curtain of the industry. I don't know what it's like to exist as the artist behind. There might be new struggles that are there that make it so that people have to honor the way things are going right now, So a part of me doesn't want to speak for what's on the other side, but I do know that it is frustrating because it's like I can put my music on all streaming platforms and put it on SoundCloud for people who don't have the money to subscribe to those things. But I know that I'm losing money by putting it on SoundCloud, but I need to give it out to people because they need to be educated on what else is there.
You still need to get it to people.
You know what I mean? So we've got independent artists are always making these sacrifices in their head to juggle being a business and being an artist, and those two things are always in conflict depending on where your goal is. If you want to just be a businessman, it doesn't really matter what you're making as long as you can make what fits the business model that exists right now. So when I think of radio, I think of making music that fits between advertising, because that's pretty much what radio is doing. It's just selling the next ad and making sure that your song is catchy enough to be safe for that space.
To keep the audience. Keep the audience there so that they can hear that.
You know what I mean? Even though you do see some contradictions, because now whatever's international that's popping will always have a space, and some of that stuff doesn't necessarily fit with the advertisers. But
the other day I was listening to a song by Wale.
Yeah.
I don't know what's the title of the song. I forgot, but it goes, "Shorty got a big old butt."
Oh yeah.
And that song plays on radio here. And here you are, you just told us the kind of info that you share within your music.
Yeah.
And the intention behind it.
Yeah.
Yet that doesn't have space on our radio. And part of it, you may even include nuances that someone from here instantly relates to. They don't have to think or decipher it.
Yeah. Because it's not to say that I'm not trying to say that you got to be deep and deep people got to be on radio too.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that. I'm just trying to say that if I create music and I create what people are interested in and are buying into, that should be enough to have the space to at least pitch, the music. Because I've been reading tweets and stuff randomly throughout this weekend of artists that are huge saying, "Hey man, radio's not playing my stuff," and I'm just like, whoa, that's crazy, because it's like I mess with your joints. So like, that's hectic. So it's clearly something that I don't understand, and I don't want to question it too much, and rather, because I'm the type of person that's like, okay, you know what, it is what it is. But all we can do is keep my head down and focus on just pushing the best way I know how. So I'm very passionate about studying people from afar, whether it be whatever your brand is. I'll bump into you sooner or later, whether by algorithm or word of mouth.
Yeah.
And I love watching the way people release music, the music itself, like the sounds, how they invest in that, and then using that to influence and inspire my material in a way that's unique to me. And I think being unique is the only thing that we can sell at this point, because like I said earlier on, I didn't know that mental health would be a conversation we'd have in 2020, but from the time I made my first tape in 2016. But we've come a long way. So it also gives me hope that when things align with what I've done, what I've put out, and what's meant for me, to get to that point where we will play on radio.
So I guess the most important thing in this whole situation is consistency on your side.
That is, I've heard it from promoters that I've worked with in the past, booking agents, other artists. What I get is that the audience, which includes the people that will hire you, just want to be shown and have your value be made obvious to them. The best way to be obvious to someone is to be a consistent dude. The guy who can run 10Ks every soccer match is the guy who's going to get on the pitch, no matter how talented the other dude is who doesn't train. And that speaks to the whole Leo, Messi, Ronaldo conversation. But we won't go into that. But it's the same principle of, would say, hey, as long as I'm working hard, you can say anything you want to say about me, but for 4 years, I've been growing a brand, and I've been doing it consistently, and I'm proud of that, as different as it is. So all I can do is keep building on that, and when it's my time, it'll be my time.
Trick question.
Yeah.
Give me 5 artists that you're currently listening to.
Locally or internationally?
Your top 5 that you're currently listening to. It doesn't have to be about stature, who's the biggest.
Yeah.
I just want to know genuinely top 5 artists right now. Let's say, looking back since the lockdown, like who you messing with mostly, like top 5.
I mess with Saba, who's an international rapper. Really messing with Low Key. I'm sorry to be Durban about it, but yo.
Nigga, you ain't gotta apologize. Like I said, this is you. This is you. Like no one. I can't say no, you're wrong. But this is your choice. You choose those.
Got to shout out my homies at Cultured Chaos, Celestial Mike, who's also just dropped as well. Really bumping that Hand of God 3. Yashna's
which
been
you
putting
on
in
it
the work.
as well.
Yes, sir. Yashna as well, I was saying, also been really working hard. Who else? Robert Glasper. I'm also like a bit of a jazzy cat. So I like anything that has musicality to it. What else? That's 4, ne?
Yeah.
And myself, man. I bump myself every day because I've got to remember my own lyrics a lot of times.
Let me give you a fist bump.
Yeah.
For me, that's 4 out of 5. So you did pretty well.
Shout out.
You know why? Because I have a bone to pick with artists. See, you just by that 4 out of 5, you just excluded yourself amongst these artists that I'm going to talk about right now. As I said, it was a trick question.
Okay.
So had you got like 2 out of 5, you might be in the list.
Yeah.
Artists from here, please. As much as you producing music, ne?
Yeah.
You want us to listen. You want people here to listen, right?
Yeah.
And that's the one audience that's going to connect better than most audiences, because we're right here. We understand just by reading your name, Lungelo Manzi. I know that's my homeboy.
Yeah.
That is a Muntwala type of thing. So if you, Lungelo Manzi, are bumping Drake, Future, Kendrick, Lungelo Manzi, and then like some other South African, what are you telling us? What are you telling me? You don't value the art that's produced here, but yet you want me to value the art that you produce
here. Yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So if you're an artist from SA, and the reason I say this is that you have an audience that you're building with your music. So within that music, certain people will pick up certain influences from you.
Yeah.
And that one influence that they could pick up, since you are a musician, is who are you listening to? So
I guess, yeah, that speaks
so
to.
if you listen to predominantly local artists, hello, you're doing your beat for South African music.
Yeah, because a friend of mine works at a very big radio station, and his whole thing was, hey man, people want to critique radio, but do they listen to radio like on the daily, you know? And that's in terms of when you want to create for the landscape of the sound that's there. And I'm speaking about like beats wise, not necessarily the content, because that could be a number of things. But it speaks to the point that you're raising, you know, because for me, that was one of my big struggles, in that the sound in my music specifically wasn't what was happening at the time. I didn't care that if I'm going on a boom bap type of track, that it's 20 something, you know. I didn't think that there was a certain time or era for a certain sound. It was more about the feelings and making sure those feelings resonate, and finding that South African feeling has always been this puzzle that I'm trying to figure out, because everyone has an opinion about what's a South
What's
African
our sound?
You know what I mean? Is it speaking in vernac only? Is it having certain sounds, you know? And I have my own views about it, but at the end of the day, it's just about, if it moves me and I am a South African, like Tegwini, that should be enough. Because you can hear that, and the audience is smart enough to hear that. We underestimate what the audience can say at times and feel, but they get it. You know, they get it enough to know who they like internationally. So regardless of the politics la eMzansi, siyazi ukuthi uba opushayo nokuthi uba osikoqayo. You know what I mean?
And this goes back to, that's why like umaskandi, gospel, see, all those genres, they've been consistent as far as keeping it local is concerned.
Yeah.
So that's why the audience there never fades, never goes away, and it stays loyal, because as soon as the tune comes on, you don't need to think about it. Like,
I also think they take care of their audience. You know, we underestimate. Like I said, St. George's now. If you guys are around there, whether you're like students or whatever watching now, you guys know that every now and again there's always like a truck or something pulling up, bumping Maskandi or bumping some local new smash that you've got to hear on a random day, you know. And I watch people like I said, New York House, looking out their windows, like jamming and having a great time. And in my head, as this hip hop guy, I'm just like, these guys are rock stars right now, you know? But we underestimate that that's what they're doing. I was performing at a conference last year in August, the Music and Bizo, and at that conference, there was a specific show at the warehouse where Maskandi artists, Ushui and them were performing. They came through Nama Quantum for their fans, you know? They go and their uniform.
Ukuzani has a blue army. All his fans, they rock. When he's there, everybody shows up in blue.
Yeah,
dog.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah. Like,
because we don't see the merch game in that.
And if we booga, that's what they're doing overseas. That's the kind of shit they're pulling off. But when you wanna duplicate the same thing there and think, oh, it's gonna fly here.
Yeah, because it's not to say the same business models don't work. You know, you can still do the same thing, but do you?
Like, and people might think I'm saying no to Umaskandi. No, you can do R&B, bring in Umaskandi. Like Diamonds, that's in there. But why are they so successful?
Yeah, they killing.
You know, it's that whole, like, everything. Yeah, but is influenced by Umaskandi, Umpaqang. So all those are local sounds. That's our sound. People, like, don't fool yourself and think, Uti, our sound is something else. Like, asina your sound, sina your sound.
Excuse me.
It's just that we don't want to value it.
Yeah.
As soon as you take influences of Umaskandi and you bring it into hip hop, that's something different. Uzulu, Big Zul. Big Zul is bagging deals left and right.
Yeah, he's killing it too.
Up to that is Zulu. Even the sounds are related to Umaskandi, or influenced by Umaskandi. That's because that's authentic. Java bagged awards. Shoma Chose is on the same lane. You know, because they're bringing this vibe, yala. You're not different. If you really, really, really want to take it international and sustain it, Lady Smith, Black Mambazo, Uzawalala, Ngoxolo, Babshabalala, they were still international for how many years?
Yeah, even like Muzi as well.
Yeah.
Local guy doing that same thing,
Mahotela queens are respected internationally. Ila Tina Kupela. It's only us because Tina we like that.
Yeah.
Master KG.
I was watching WhatsApp stories of people in the club doing lit dance again. Yo, that man has got a campaign from the president now. Even
Bro.
the president is telling people to listen to your song, you're done, bruh.
Yeah, since you're an artist, bro, I mean, obviously your music has to make money through events, performances.
Yeah.
So the country is slowly opening up. What's happening on your site, Lungelo Manzi, as far as that is concerned?
Eish.
Or what's the plan if there is?
Yeah, I won't lie, man. It's been a tough time because, like we said, being consistent is enough to get you to the door of being booked. You know, when lockdown started, the first day, I had a gig that was cancelled because we were going straight into level 5. So I was cut from the knees down, man, and I just took that time to focus on finishing the projects and being constructive about it and writing. Now, with things opening up, I'm not even sure what the process is, because you try to be as visible as you can in the months that have just gone by, so that when it's time to be booked, you're still in people's minds. That is in itself is its own process because you need to be visible as the artist. If I'm unknown, the best thing I can do is go to someone else's show and support their show, so that I can be in those spaces and talk to people and grab my next opportunity. It's not like being an established artist and know that there's gigs waiting for me anyway because I'm already top of mind. So we've got to really work to do that. So I know in October, end of the month, we're doing Show and Tell, which is a gig organized by Cultured Chaos. It'll feature myself, Yashna, and Celestial Mike performing. I'm gonna come through with the band. I'm gonna do some new songs.
Hey, and this man kills the live performances with the band. Yo.
Yeah. So shout out to the gents. Yeah.
I fucks with it.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be doing some new things there. I am also looking into hosting my first solo show when I'm headlining. I also want to invite some of my friends in music to come through and show love. So we're looking into that.
So does this one man show have a title or?
Not yet.
Is it just a once-off thing, or is it going to be an ongoing thing?
I'm looking to build it, because I think I need to give people like me and audiences like me a home here in Durban. A home to feel safe, to express themselves and see what else they can do. Because I'm also passionate about other fields in art, so acting and poetry, with the use of music and instruments. I want to see what we can do to create a space like that. For shows, so coming to a show, you don't necessarily have to go to the Playhouse to sit down and watch a show, but we can be chilling in a space like this, have someone doing their music thing, and have an actor give us a monologue, things like that, just to play with the formula of how we consume music, to change the experience, because people are buying into experiences now. People want to leave with something. Yes, they can go and listen to a DJ who's going to play your song, and that's great. Shout out to the DJs doing that, but I also want to be able to just create experiences that let you leave thinking about more than just the music, but the music itself is a starting point. So we'll build there slowly towards the end of this year, definitely towards the drop of my next project.
When is that?
I don't want to give out a date, but it's definitely in October.
Okay.
That I will definitely say. I have
Black Dog 3, right?
3, the final one, yes.
Oh,
yeah.
Shit. How many tracks?
7. I might throw in a bonus, but we're solid on. There's a solid 7 tracks currently being mixed and mastered. Only features are only one, which is MJ Summers. We dropped the song Mr. Yeah, earlier this year.
Dope joint.
Yeah, thank you.
On iTunes, Spotify.
Yes, sir.
Trust me, I have it on my playlist.
Yeah, I've been getting a lot of positive feedback for that. Shout out to MJ for allowing that collaboration to happen. So yeah, it's just her as a feature, and then I've got production credits with Ukiani, who's my bassist in the band, and then a joint with Jaden Daniel, who plays keys. He was also a producer. They're all producers in the band, but yeah, those are the main people we've got. And then Dave Ordinary as well. Oof, almost forgot. He's the guy who's done a lot of the tracks in the tape as well. One of the best producers here in Durban, underrated but hella talented. Yeah.
And then you mentioned that this is a culmination of what you started in 2016 with Black Dog 1.
Yeah, I can break that down. So Black Dog 1 was, we were trying to make sense of an experience, it was like a first explosion, a first moment of yo, some ish happened to me, here's the story. Then Black Dog 2 is looking at, so the first tape was the mental health of myself in the mind. The second is the mental health of myself as the artist. So how do you identify yourself? What's authentic? What does it mean to be me? What does it mean to be me in South Africa, in Durban, right now? Does it mean I have to do Maskandi, like we were talking about earlier? Those sorts of conversations. So that's why the sounds in Black Dog 2 are so different, because it's me just going through like very specific sounds to put and place myself. But in that, you're seeing me express myself and show how versatile I can be, which is one of my strengths that I like to push, is that, hey man, I can jump on anything, you know? Black Dog 3 is trying to make sense of the industry now. Okay, cool. Now we know my brand. Now we know that I can do this thing, but can I be someone who can fit in the industry space, and what is my lane? So now the sound is a very specific, it has a story, and I'm giving you a narrative of what it means to be the typical artist who rises, maybe gets into a label, maybe gets screwed over by the label, maybe has to choose to be independent and then find his own way, or just an artist finding his own way from the jump. The long game versus the short game. That's what we're trying to talk about in Black Dog 3. It's a very specific conversation, because I find that in my music, the first people that are touched are other artists. They come to me and they're like, yo man, I dig this track, I bump with this, you know, others want features and all these other things, before it gets to the other audience members, the lawyers, the accountants, the people who are just there for the vibes.
Your everyday people.
You know what I mean? So I noticed in that, hey man, you know, let me actually paint a picture for what it is, because some people aren't educated about the struggles of being an artist in a way that is literal, in terms of, I'm actually struggling right now, but I'm also not letting that weigh me down. I'm like pushing, and I want to show you that I don't want to tell my story once I've made it. I want you to see it as I'm growing, you know, so that you can have a blueprint for the next kid who's going to come through and kill it, you know.
Does Lungelo have any plans of being signed anytime soon?
Yeah.
Or maybe mhlambe, that's not part of the plan. So sorry, record labels.
Hey man, you know, record labels get a lot of flack, you know, and most times it's just because, you know, it doesn't feel human at the bottom of it all. But at the same time, they're a business. I have shifted between the two. You know, currently I'm not signed, but I think if I got the right deal specifically for licensing, one that protects my music as a legacy, but allows me to work with a label to use their resources and infrastructure to reach more people, I would be open to that, because I think that's one thing that labels can give, especially for our industry, where everything seems to be in Joburg, or everything seems to be DIY. You either have to do either or. And some artists don't have that in them, you know. I think that you don't necessarily have to be the guy who's going to do everything. You don't have to be your own PR, your own manager, your own, you know. But at the same time, if that's what you need to be comfortable, for you to focus on your art, you should be able to do that, as long as you know how to protect your business at the end of the day. So it's always good. I always tell people that want to know that, would say, you need to first educate yourself about the industry so that you can make a better choice. If you're going off of what you see on Twitter and what you see online, you're going to be misled, because half of that stuff is pre-planned. Half of that stuff is just people presenting a perception. It's smoke and mirrors, you know. So you need to first figure out on facts, on paper, how things go. That information sometimes is not accessible, but you can ask, you know, and you'll find a way. But to answer your question, I would be open to sign the right deal. Yeah.
What is the right deal for you?
Licensing, man, it means that I'm willing to let a label give me their machine, whatever it is, that thing that they have to push my music. Because right now, this is just me being transparent, you know, to educate people. My struggle is I need those streaming numbers to be up, because my gigs were canceled, you know. And until I can get a significant stream income, then it's not going to work for me unless I have a job. You know, which I do on the side, but that's not the point. I'm trying to leave that job to make money in the music or invest in other things. So if I can get into a situation where a label's like, hey man, how's a young percentage of your sales that you get online for streams? And we'll make sure that we plug it to the right spaces for people to hear it, whether that be at a store, whether that be on a playlist online, whether that be anywhere, you know. I'll be open to that. I think that'll be the best kind of deal.
Is owning your IP something that's important for you?
That's exactly what I mean. So as long as I'm giving them just the sales or something, but I own the music, that's very important because it means that I can use it in whatever way I want, whether that's putting it into a movie or I want to be able to not ask for permission to do what I want with my music. So if like GNPS is like, yo, we need a theme song, and I'm like, yo,
Plug it in.
you know what I mean? I don't need to send an email to somebody to be like, yo, this needs to happen. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I want to have that freedom because that's what we need as artists. Because the moment you're boxed into that type of situation, you end up just chasing a rabbit to get out of that contract and making whatever to fill in that time.
Have you had any offers of this?
So my story is a bit
Kind.
different because it's
Like a
like
360 type of deal thrown at your table.
what I've had is publishing. I have a lot of publishing offers, people wanting to own, like you're saying, the IP of the music. I was in a group in Cape Town. We were called like the Fam. There's like 10 of us, but we were filmmakers as students as well as these creatives making music. In that group, one of my friends, a rapper, was also offered this deal. I watched him get into that deal. And I was the one that was there making the hooks and the beats for his music at the time when we were working together. And watching how this indie label was not treating him right as far as what he expected to get out of the deal and what ended up happening. It was my first visible look into what is a 360 deal, you know. And at the time, because you're young, you're not seeing that the things that you're getting are worth what you signed for, whether that be studio time, artwork. It's a thing that you underestimate. So I watched that struggle happen, and that was my lesson. It was like I was signed with him, but I wasn't. I was just like, yo, man, I'm seeing that life through his eyes, you know? So that taught me a lot of things, because remember earlier I said I love learning from people. And I've been fortunate enough to be exposed to so many different types of creatives and musicians who've gotten into so many things that I myself have been prepared ahead of the time to know what to, even if I was presented, I wouldn't have fell into a deal like that. Or at least to the best of my knowledge, you know, until something else happens. But we're wiser now. Yeah.
It's tough.
It's tough, dog. It's so tough, bro. Because, yeah, you don't know what you can do with the music the way someone who's done it so long knows, you know. Before merchandising was a thing that I had to think about, I didn't think about it. Like the same way I didn't think about music videos when I had to shoot my first music video. I was just like, yo, I'm going to drop these songs and then I'm going to blow up on SoundCloud and we're going to be done. There's a place that you can distribute on SoundCloud to get some streams or whatever the thing is, you know. There's so many things behind the doors that I had to educate myself on. And once I did that, it helped me grow and make a better decision about the types of music that I would be making and how to speak to my market, you know. And those are things that I'd love to keep sharing in the music and the way that I push my sound out.
Do you still have any ambitions as far as screenwriting is concerned?
I put it in the music now, you know. So I in March, I think it was March or 3 months ago, I dropped a music video for one of my singles on Black Dog 3 called Sometimes. The music video itself is not like most music videos. It's written like a film. So it required firstly a lot of acting from me because it's a quite emotional sort of film. It speaks to the artist's sort of struggle during this time of Corona, where you are in a confined space, protecting yourself, staying sanitized, but knowing ukuthi it's tough for you to create or have shows or perform because people now want, or rather you don't have gigs anymore. So I was speaking to that sort of struggle in the video, and I wrote it as a film in one particular space. So that's what I've told myself I'm going to do, in that my other passions will be related to the music. And that's the best way to preserve it, because music is my core ability and the thing that I've invested my 10,000 hours plus into.
I think that's a good thing, because then it sort of it not only makes it different in a very huge crowd, but it also gives your art more substance, like you know.
I think, you know, that the most timeless music is the music that has that longevity, you know, the music that you can replay. It even makes, even in the way that I write, sometimes I want to write songs that are just like very simple, very bassy, you know, and not to downplay what those songs are about, but unless it's something that speaks to me, I think with those with any type of music that I create, I want there to be more of a story that you get, because stories are timeless. You know, you can make a hit, but a real hit is one that has a story that's so universal, that's so relatable. That's why it actually is a hit. You know, the catchy songs are the songs for me that are hits that are written as stories, but are written in a catchy way. So if you can write a catchy story, you've got a timeless hit there. You know what I mean?
That's why, like, we are the world.
You know,
Still lives today.
because we are the children, bruh. You know, it's a story of legacy and a story of generational heritage and the things that you can get or build with investing into children. So in the same way, you know, I try to find those types of stories in the way that I write my music that can relate to you 20 years from now, even if you haven't gone through it, because I think that's important.
Now, let's look at Durban.
Sure.
For you, since you chose to stay here as an artist and make it out of here,
Yeah.
do you feel like we're headed towards the right direction as far as facilitating that for more artists other than Lungelo Manzi, or beyond Lungelo Manzi's time?
It's tricky, man, you know, because I always say, for me, how I see it, the industry is a network of relationships. So that means that there needs to be a community of people who are not just independent but interdependent, as my homie Wandile likes to say, which means that they share the resources that they're in, and everyone is not doing the same thing, but in enough different spaces for us to coexist and create an ecosystem of an industry. So for that to happen, I, as an artist coming up, need to know that if I am releasing music, there's someone I can go to for PR, there's someone I can go to for graphic design, there's someone I can go to promote my shows at an event, there is someone I can go to distribute online. All these points need to exist for me to be able to do that. Now, I don't know how much of that we have here in Durban as far as the other stuff, but I know we have a lot of artists. One thing Durban has never been short of is talent. You know, we've got
tons and tons.
You can name any genre you want. There's somebody doing it and killing it. You know, but because of that infrastructure, that link between us, for us to know that we exist, it's going to take a lot longer. You know, it is slowly coming back, you know, because I think around before lockdown, the eventing space was really picking up again as far as there being spaces for people just like me who aren't necessarily established to have a space to perform. That was happening a lot with spaces like the Charlatan, which is now no longer there, RIP. But
bro, that's one space that supported the creative spaces.
Bruh,
yeah.
I personally had my most shows there. I performed the most at that venue, you know. It was very much like home. They were the first guys as a venue to play my music, off of not even me asking. They just wanted to play it. So spaces like that, you know, having more spaces like that to invest in any kind of sound or be open to it, are important. Spaces that allow us to network as artists are important. Maybe that being like more studios that are inclusive, you know, because there are studios here in Durban, but they're not spoken about, or people have their own reasons why they choose to stay in their cliques or their circles. But I can't assume those reasons. All I know is that akhona abantu that are passionate, but maybe we're not all exposed to the different opportunities in music that we can have. Like, we don't have enough music entertainment lawyers, you know, people to write those right contracts for you, you know. That's
somebody that you could take a contract to.
You know what I mean? To write one for you, you know.
And be like, hey, I got this deal from so and so. Can you just vet it for me before I sign it?
Exactly. So there's so many, like music accountants specifically, people that can just balance your books for it, so that when taxes come, you know what's up. You know, there's so many things that you can do in the music space, but we only see the guy that wants to be on stage and think that's the be all and end all, or we only want to be the manager, and then we have managers who want to be artists. You know, there's so many things around that you can be, that can be successful for you in a career that's in music.
Wow, well said. Before we close this off, I'll give you an opportunity to speak about whatever, whether you want to give advice or it's something that you feel like, you know, it's either left out of this conversation or it's always at the top of your mind, you know, which is of importance, that you would like to share or tell our audience. to the camera.
I don't have to reintroduce myself.
Nah.
You know what it
They already-
is.
You better know by now.
But I would say, man, collaboration is everything. No man is an island on their own. And now more than ever, the independent artists need to come together. We need to know that we're building something not just for us, but for our industry, for the world to know that SA is bigger than whatever the world tells us it is. We are the ones who live here. We are the ones who know what's up. And it's up to every person to find that unique thing within them that they want to share and bring it to the table or build more tables for us, because in that way we contribute not just to ourselves, but to the audience ready to listen, to the economy that can thrive from it, and hopefully get government involved like they should, hopefully get these brands investing like they should. It's nation building at the end of the day, and the artist is one of the most respected, or should be one of the most respected industries or people contributing to the world ever, because we're the ones that bring the messages and help people get through what they got to get through. And I encourage you who's out there pushing your music to keep going. I'm just a dude who really believes in what he's got to do, and I'm taking it to as far as I can, no matter how different or weird or whatever they may call it. But as long as it feels good to me, I'm happy. And I hope that whatever you make feels good to you, that you share it, that I get to hear it, and we grow, man. Shout out.
Yes, sir. Black Dog 3 is coming out in October. Make
Yes,
sure
sir.
you get that when it drops. Right before that, until then, you can go get the other 2 projects.
On all streaming
some love
platforms, we out
to the
there.
boy.
We out there. We out there. We out there.
Other than that, catch us next time. Thank you for tuning in. All the returning subscribers, thank you. To the new ones, Siyabonga, thanks for joining us. And shout out to Tiny at Tiny Films behind the camera. Don't forget to vote for Tiny Films.
Hey.
Hey, we got 3 nominees in the house.
Nominated. I even forgot about that. Yo, bruh. I know this is going to be out. Yo, 35959. GNPS, Tiny Films, Lungelo Manzi. We in the building. Yeah.
Yes, sir. That's the Devon Creative Awards. Shout out to those guys. Thank you for the nominations.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. Make sure you vote for Tiny Films, GNPS. Tiny is nominated for Best Videography. The GNPS is nominated for Best Content Creator. Lungelo Manzi is nominated for Best Musician. So make sure you do the right thing.
Yes, sir.
Otherwise, catch us next time. Make sure you subscribe. Subscribe. Peace.
Peace, man.